I'll be leading you through a yin yoga class today. So welcome. Thank you for joining me. So I always like to kind of just sit for a few moments, just for a few seconds, and take in my breath, take in my space, and connect with the beginning of practice. So why don't we do that for a moment? And maybe just place one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. Let's take some nice, smooth breaths here. And we'll feel the inhale all the way down to the belly. And then feel the exhale from the belly up. So please do that just a couple more times. Smooth inhale and smooth exhale. Last time, smooth inhale and smooth exhale. All right. And then let's just bring our hands together for a moment and set the intention. What has brought you to your mat today? How can yoga serve you? And then we'll just bow our heads, relax our hands, and come back to center. So today I thought we would work on the heart and lung meridian, or chi. And so the poses will definitely be directed to those meridians, those energy centers in the body. Of course, our lungs take in our prana and our chi, and our heart gets us more in touch with our innate joy and love and nurturing, not just nurturing others, but also learning to nurture ourselves. And and if you haven't done yin yoga before, we do hold the poses a little bit longer than in a regular practice. So if anything is very uncomfortable, as in like a sharp or hot pain, I would definitely recommend coming out of it. But if it's just kind of muscular discomfort, I will encourage you to just stay there and see what transforms, because that's been one of the greatest gifts for me in yin yoga, is seeing that I come to a roadblock and then I can get past it. So my ability to tolerate what's uncomfortable keeps moving and getting and expands a little bit more. And believe it or not, that lesson also is a great lesson for off the mat, right? Can we tolerate what's uncomfortable instead of kind of just jumping out of it, and see what it has to teach us? So sometimes it can give us a great message. Okay? So let's go ahead, and if you have a blanket or something that you can lay across your mat, that would be fantastic, because it'll be nice for your knees to have a little cushioning. So I have 2 blocks and a couple blankets and a bolster. Of course, you don't need all these yoga props, so you can just use anything at home. So if you have something that you can just throw down, that might be really nice for your knees. Okay, so let me just grab my blanket. I'll go ahead and lay it across. And we're going to come into a wide-legged child's pose, but with a little twist, okay? So you start with your knees a little bit closer, and as we hang out in the pose for a little bit longer, you might find that your knees can open up wider. So just whatever is comfortable for you, okay? Then I'm going to ask you to bring your left shoulder as close to your right knee as you can. So we'll lay our shoulder down, we'll lay our head down, and if you need a little cushion, you could put something under your head if that would be more comfortable. Then you can just let your right hand rest behind you. And then we'll just see what this pose has to say to us today. And not only might your knees get a little bit wider, but you might also be able to move your torso a little bit more to the side. Okay, and I'm just going to put the timer on so I don't get lost here, although I highly doubt I would forget I'm in this pose. So you might be feeling a nice stretch through the inner thighs, through your shoulder and your spine. And just try to keep the breath as smooth as you can. And anytime if you feel like you can stretch out a little bit, then by all means, let the legs go a little bit wider. And then remember that your energy, what we would call prana in yoga or chi in Chinese medicine, follows the mind. So where do you need to send your energy here? And just start with the mind. So just bring your attention to that space, wherever it is, and let yourself settle in there. Now it's easy to let the mind get busy when we start to try and become still. So if that's happening to you, just maybe do a count, like inhaling 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhaling 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're almost there. You might find that even the spine can twist a little bit deeper, but there's nothing forced. It's a very natural and gentle movement. Last few breaths. Please take 5 more breaths here. And if you're familiar with Ujjayi, that's also a nice place to rest your mind. And then when you're ready to come out of the pose, just lower the top arm and gently push yourself up. And we'll come to center again. I'm going to ask you, don't drag your knees together, but lift one knee at a time and bring them together, and just take child's pose for a breath or two. And just see how your spine feels and your back feels after that first twist. And then we'll go ahead and come back up when you're ready. We'll take the legs wide again. And this time it might even be a little bit easier to do that. And then go ahead and take the opposite shoulder as close to the other leg as you can. And then we'll wrap the top arm behind our back. And just rest here. And this side might feel very different than the first side, so please stay alert and present to what is happening in this moment. Sometimes we come into a pose with an expectation. But as much as we can cultivate a beginner's mind whenever we're in our practice, then life is always fresh. The moment is always new. And if you can take the legs a little bit wider, feel free to do that. If you feel like you can move your shoulder over a little bit more, then feel free to do that. And again, maybe coming back to counting your inhale and exhale, or simply listening to the soothing sound of Ujjayi pranayama. Okay, we're almost there. Yin Yoga has taught me to cultivate a lot of patience, not just practicing it, but also teaching it. Last few breaths. Maybe at this point the legs can go just at a new edge. And please take 5 more breaths. And when you feel you've completed those, then of course, lower your top arm. Let's unwind from here. We'll come back to the middle, and again, we'll lift the knees, bring them together, and just take child's pose for 2 or 3 breaths. You can do it with your hands under your head or your arms by your side. And then we'll go ahead and keep the chin tucked, but take your time and roll up. So remember, in yin, we've stretched not just muscle, but also tissue, and even the organs are getting a little stretch here. Okay. So if you did put something on your mat like a blanket, you're welcome to just move it out of the way for now. We might need it later. And then go ahead and join me on your belly. And in yin yoga, we call this Sphinx pose. So for today, I'm going to ask you to bring your hands together. And then the legs will go a little bit wider than your hips. And if you'd like, you can even lift one leg at a time and just get a little bit more on the center of your thighs. There we go. So we're going to hang out here for a few minutes, so get as comfortable as you can. Now, because we will be here for a few minutes, it might get a little tiring on your neck to keep your head in neutral. So if that's the case, then please feel free to drop your head a little bit and just let the neck stretch. And then when you feel like you're ready, then you can come back to center. Okay? And one last little instruction. The elbows will be a little bit forward of your shoulders, so not right underneath, because that'll tend to make us round a little bit more. So you want the elbows forward a little bit. And then you can do this with your eyes open or closed. And I'll encourage you to bring your attention to the back body. And just feel, this is a little back bend. So just feel where the back, where you're doing the back bend, where you feel the back bend. And as if you can breathe through the back of the body. And we'll soften our face, we'll allow the shoulders to rest back, as if all the bones are just lining up and settling into place so that we can find stillness. What we know of as sthita in yoga. And although this is a back bend, I also like the poses on the belly because they really help the energy of the navel center, which is such a power center for us. So it really stimulates that area as well. And then we get a really open feeling to the expansion and contraction of our rib cage. So we're just watching how the breath shapes and moves our bodies. So again, if at any time your head or neck needs a little rest, just let your head drop a little bit. And then when you feel called to do it, then you just bring your head back to center so it feels neutral. Now, although in yin yoga we're encouraged to let things be relaxed and soft, in this back bend, if you're feeling any extra discomfort in your lower back, you could always firm the glutes just a little bit to support the lower back. So you can just test that out if you feel like you need to, and see if that will ease any discomfort. So we're almost there, just a few more breaths. Obviously there's a little bit of action in the arms, but not too much. Just feel your shoulders keep settling back. Take a couple more breaths here. And then when you're ready to, you're just going to open out the elbows, cross your hands, and just rest your head down. And then please come back. And I'd love to give you an option, because we're going to continue with one more back bend now. So it could be the one we just did, and maybe instead of having the hands together, if you want to change it up a little bit, maybe the hands are apart. So that's one option. Or the option two would be what they call seal pose in yoga, where we turn the hands out a little bit and then we lift the elbows up. So now the arms are straight. So feel free to do either one. And I always like to tell my students, if you decide on this higher one and you're here and you're like, oh, this was a really bad idea, nobody needs to know. Just come back down and come back into Sphinx pose. Okay? All right, so let's do this together. All righty. So either Sphinx with the elbows down, or we're in seal where now the arms are straight. And I kind of like this pose because I feel like the arm bones are really able to support me from my fingers all the way down up to my shoulders. And then obviously there's a bigger curve in your back. If you want less, the hands would move forward a little bit. If you wanted more, then you could move your hands back a little. So it's really a personal choice of what you do today. And if you're not sure, then just watch your breath. And if your breath is smooth, if you can stay present to it, then you're in the right spot. If your breath is a struggle, maybe you've gone a little deeper than you need to today. So you just back off a little bit. Okay, we're almost there. You can just close your eyes if you like, or keep your eyes open. Breathe into where there's space, breathe into where there's perhaps a little constriction. So it's nice to really get to know this body that you're traveling in this lifetime. And we're just going to do about 5 more breaths here. And when you've completed those 5, again, we'll lower all the way down to the mat, cross the hands, and rest. And let's just take 3 breaths here. And when you're ready, just go ahead and bring your hands next to your chest. We'll bring ourselves into tabletop. And if your knees at all are a bother, you could either double your mat or maybe use a blanket if you have one handy. So we're going to do child's pose for about 5 minutes. And you can have your arms by your side. You're welcome to have your hands under your head, so whatever feels comfortable for you. So whenever you're ready, we'll bring the knees together and gently bring yourself all the way down. Then maybe you start off with a little cushioning under your forehead, and as your back and especially around the lower back relaxes and the hips, then you could possibly bring the arms back. Okay, so whatever you're ready for today. And you'll feel this nice opening and curve along the spine. And you could breathe down into the pelvis, down into your hips. And I even like to imagine breathing into the spaces between my vertebrae. Really kind of bring, again, because the energy follows your mind, bring your mind, thus your energy, to those places that sometimes, unless something goes wrong, we really don't pay attention, right? Unless it's achy or out of whack a little bit. So it's nice to do it when we're feeling good, when we're feeling our best. Okay. So just a couple more minutes. And if you see me looking at my watch, it's just because I'm keeping the time for us, right? So we don't get lost in any pose. And then just notice how your shoulders are dropping off either side of your spine. I know mine feels sometimes a little bit different because my left shoulder, sometimes I have a little issue with it, so it doesn't want to drop the same way as my right one. My right one just kind of settles. So again, it's just about knowing ourselves a little better. And forward bends love longer exhales. So if that suits you, then try and breathe out a little bit longer. And you might find that as you breathe out, things start to relax even more. Okay, okay, we're almost there. We'll be here about one more minute. So see how just kind of soft and how much you can dissolve into the shape of this pose. So take 3 more breaths here, please. And when you're ready, just place your hands on the ground and keep your chin tucked a little bit as you begin to roll yourself up. Right, so there's no rush. We'll come all the way up. If you're comfortable just staying and sitting on your heels, just stay here for a couple breaths. If not, just sit on your seat. Okay. Alrighty. So we're going to do this pose called quarter dog. And you'll want to take your knees back a little bit so they're pretty much lined up under your heels. Then we'll just bring the left arm down so it's parallel to the front of your mat and stretch the right arm forward. And you can rest your forehead on your arm, you could rest your forehead on the mat, wherever it feels best on your neck. I like it on my arm, but that's up to you. And then we'll just be here a couple minutes on each side. Okay, so whenever you're settled, let's begin, please. And you'll feel this really nice opening and stretch along the straight arm side, the extended arm. And it gives a very nice dip to our upper back. So it'll be in a shape that's not the usual shape, because we just because of the way that we sit and move around in the world, most of the time our back is a little rounded. So that's one of the gifts of yoga, is it just helps the spine to move in all these different directions. Okay. Last few breaths on this side. Last three. Okay, and then go ahead and come up. You don't have to come up very far, just enough so that you can change arms. So now we'll bring the opposite arm down. Extend. I'm extending my left arm. And then let's just see what this side has to say to us. Each side has its own little idiosyncrasies, right, and moods. And we might need to breathe in to different places on each side. Here I'm much more aware of my shoulder. And even a little bit more extended through my armpit than on my first side. So we just begin to notice these little differences in our body. Okay, we're here just for a few more breaths. Don't give up yet. Our practice starts to give us the courage and curiosity to move towards what's uncomfortable sometimes, rather than away from it. So maybe just 3 more breaths here. Excellent. So let's go ahead and come back up. Hello. Okay. Alrighty. Right. So, right on time, right? Right. So, we're gonna do a very wide-legged pose. Sorry, my feet are out of the frame. I can't help it. And for this one, it's called Dragonfly, lateral dragonfly in yin yoga. So you might want a little prop, because we're going to be moving off to the side, and if you can't get your elbow down comfortably, it might be nice to maybe use a block or a blanket or both if you need it. And then what will probably happen is that you can lower the props, because we're going to hold for a few minutes. So feel free to start up a little bit higher so that you have something to move towards or into, right? Don't start at, sometimes we kind of start at the very deepest end of our pose and then there's nowhere to go. So it's kind of nice to take the journey and just notice each step of the way, okay? So let me just get my little timer going for us. And then you're just gonna kind of rest your head in your hand like this. And then the opposite arm could just rest on the head as well. So your head is resting in the bottom hand, and then the top arm is just resting on your head. And maybe this is where you stay the whole time, right? You're up a little bit higher. Maybe after a few moments you feel like, oh, I can come down a little bit more, so we remove one prop. Okay? But again, follow your breath, not just your mind. Okay. All right, here we go. This gives a big, wonderful opening to the side body. If you look at what movements we usually make, just our regular everyday, the most we do is bend forward or twist to one side to grab something out of our back seat. But here yoga encourages us to move to the side and move back and stay longer in the twists and to twist to both sides evenly. So we have happy spines. You might also find that you can move the prop maybe towards the foot a little bit more. So now there's also a little bit of extra space on the bottom side. So you're not just now stretching the top, but now the bottom is getting a little more opening as well. And do your best to relax the feet and the legs. Just hang in there for one more breath. And then take your time and come up. That was awesome. All right. So let's see what happens on side 2. Okay, so again, we might start a little bit higher and then make our way down. Okay. So I'm going to move over just a little bit so I don't totally drop out of frame. Okay, so let's begin. And again, maybe it's just your head in your hand, elbow high up, and then the opposite arm over. Okay. And then I can feel myself wanting to kind of grip through my feet and legs, so just a gentle reminder to soften. And just breathe into the side body. And maybe you find you can lower your prop a little bit, or move it further out towards your foot. And what's wonderful is even what's uncomfortable comes to an end. Keep softening. We're almost there. Last few breaths, I promise. Take 3 more breaths, please. And then when you're ready to come up, just take your time. Hello, and welcome back. All right, so very simple. You're just gonna hold on to the backs of the knees, bring your feet together, and we're gonna come into, so don't bring your feet in tight. I know that in our regular practice we call this Baddha Konasana, but in Yin they call it butterfly, and it's just a little wider diamond. And then from here, we'll start to come forward. And again, you might start off kind of high up. And if for any reason you feel like, oh, today I need to rest my head a little bit on something, you could use your blankets or a block under your head. So the way that I like to not only practice but also teach is that the pose meets you, right? We don't have to force ourselves into the pose. So be in a place where we can practice sthita, which is steadiness and stillness, and also what's called sukha, which is ease, right? Which is, there's an element of comfort so that the mind is not agitated. And Yin Yoga gives us a really great opportunity to experience these two facets of practice. Stillness and ease. And just notice where the resistance is without any judgment around it. So it's like, oh, today one side is a little tighter than it was yesterday, or this side is so much more open than I expected. So we're in for a surprise. Sometimes a surprise either way, right? To the positive side, the things that we like, or sometimes the things that we're not as comfortable with. Keep releasing. Without forcing anything, just continue to soften into the pose. Again, you can use Ujjayi as a focus point, or you can count the breaths. And just keep feeling like you can let go, like you don't have to hold anything. You can really allow yourself to be nurtured by the practice. Last couple minutes. If there's still any spots that are, I don't like to use the term tight. I prefer to say resistant to change. So if you have any spots that are still resisting change, right, just stay with it. Keep breathing, stay positive. Keep letting go. And you can, if you've made it down, you can have your hands flat or maybe just turn them up so there's this kind of extra feeling of just being present, just letting go. That you're not even holding or gripping the mat. Please take the last few breaths here. And in these last few breaths, just completely relax. Now we've been here for a while, so when you're ready, you're going to push up, and please come up as mindfully as you have been in the postures. So don't rush to come up, just kind of peel yourself up. We were there for a full 5 minutes. That was awesome. Awesome. Okay. And now help your knees together. So we'll bring them together and stretch your legs out. And then just place your hands behind you a little bit. Lean back, and you can keep your head in neutral or maybe just lift the chin. So let's just bring the spine for a few breaths in the opposite direction. So we were really kind of rounding there and stretching. So now we're just going to arch the back. Excellent. And then relax. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and lie down on our back for a moment. Don't get excited. This is not Savasana. Okay. We're just going to do a lying down twist. So go ahead and make your way down to your mat. Then I like to shift, so we're going to drop the knees to the left side, but I'm going to ask you maybe shift your hips a little bit to the right. So just pick them up and shift them. And then we'll bring the knees over to the side. Some of you might like to cross the legs and drop them that way. That's just going to intensify the twist, so make sure that your back can tolerate that, or you just keep the legs stacked. Then you can rest, you're welcome to rest your left hand on your legs, and your right arm can either be straight out to the side or maybe a little bit more extended overhead. And if it's extended, then it'll kind of open up those lung and heart meridians a little bit more. And twists are so balancing and nourishing for our system, for the two hemispheres of the brain, for the energy centers along the spine, the sun on the right and the moon on the left. It also helps the function of our digestion. So I love twists. They're really relaxing as well. So I'll make sure we don't fall asleep here. And your right shoulder doesn't have to touch the ground, but you'll find as you just hang out in the pose that it'll naturally just move a little bit closer to the mat without you having to force it in any way. And the breath is seamless between inhale and exhale. And if it's not, just notice that it's not. That's fine. But the more that you relax, your body relaxes, the mind relaxes, and the breath relaxes. So we're more than halfway through. So we'll just take a few more breaths here. And I forgot to mention, but your head can turn in any way, so maybe you just want to keep it in neutral today, or look over toward your knees, or turn it in the opposite direction. So what feels better on your neck today? Okay, last 3 or 4 breaths here. And then take your time, release the twist. You might want to kind of recenter yourself on your mat and just bring your knees into your chest for a moment. And if you want to rock a little bit, maybe side to side, or take the legs in a circle, there's all these wonderful ways that we can feel balanced again. Okay, and once you feel back in place, rest your feet on the ground, and then this time we'll shift the hips to the left a few inches. And then we'll go ahead and bring the knees in and drop them over to the right. Then again, your left arm can extend straight out, or maybe again, bring it overhead. And then turn your head in any way that feels the best for you today. Breathe into all the little nooks and crannies that might be speaking to you. And just notice if this side feels the same, like you might not notice any difference in between this one and the first side. Or maybe it's just small little places that feel completely the opposite of what you experienced before. And just find yourself very naturally, very organically continuing to twist the torso to your left. Okay, we just have a few breaths left on this side, so just enjoy. And then after this last exhale, we'll slowly bring ourselves back to center. Please realign on your mat. And just bring your knees into your chest. And again, if it feels right for you and you just want to take the legs in a little circle, please feel free to do that, or move side to side, whatever feels right. And then we'll go ahead and roll up for a moment. Stretch your legs forward, please. And if you need something under your seat just to help the tilt of the pelvis, that might come in really handy. And again, I have to, every time I come, I practice yin yoga. I practice other styles of yoga, but whenever I come to yin, I have to kind of remember to disengage things. So I'm not like, holding my legs really tight and my feet tight, but I'm relaxing. And then we'll come into this very simple forward bend. Okay, so take your time. And if you did have blocks and you needed a little bit of assistance, you might have the blanket under your seat and maybe the blocks for your arms or a block for your head. Right, so it just depends, or nothing. Okay, so take your time, relax. You might have to have a little conversation with your hamstrings and just ask them to please let go. I feel like hamstrings have a grudge, like they're always holding in some way, right? No matter what I do. So I just have to ask them to continue to let go. And remember that you might be able to move the props in some way. If you start off higher, maybe you can come down a little bit lower. Or maybe they stay in the same place the whole practice, for the pose. Okay, we're getting somewhere here. We're more than halfway through. See if you can move past the edge and just find a new edge. Just take about 5 more breaths, please. And again, you'll want to roll up slowly. And then once you're there, we'll lean back into the hands, draw the shoulders back, lift the chest and lift the chin slightly. And then when you feel ready, just come back to center, and then we'll come all the way down to the ground for Savasana. Okay? It's arrived. All right, so if you did happen to have a blanket, you might want to place a rolled blanket under your knees, or even the bolster under your knees. Maybe a nice blanket under your head. Might feel really good right now. So go ahead and make this your own. And lie all the way back. So take your time. Settle in. And let's just rest our hands on our belly for a moment. And just observe the body breathing. So you don't have to do anything with the breath. You're just observing the body breathing. Just watching the rise and fall of the abdomen. And then after this exhale, just let your arms rest by your side. And feel the earth come up to meet your body and hold you. So you feel your head relax, your neck, your shoulders and arms. Relax the right side of your back and relax the left side. Relax your legs, back of the knees, your ankles, feet and toes. Take a deep breath in. As you exhale, feel the chest soften. Do that one more time. Inhale. And as you exhale, feel the belly soften. And feel yourself being pulled deeper into the earth. And again, you don't have to shape the breath in any way. Just breathe normally. Keep letting go. And then just place one hand on your chest for a moment, or maybe both hands, and think about who you'd like to dedicate this practice to today. And just send this healing energy to that person. And maybe you'd like to stay in Savasana a little bit longer, so please feel free to do that. But if you're ready to come up, then I'm going to suggest rolling to your side and then coming up slowly. And once you've made it back to your seated posture, just bring your hands together for a moment. And feel yourself centered perfectly between heaven and earth. And remember one thing that you're grateful for today. And I thank you so much for joining me. So I'm grateful for you, all of you that joined this practice today. Thank you, and I will be here again next Wednesday at the same time, probably in the same room. So wishing you all a lovely day, and the light in me honors the light in each of you. Namaste. Om Shanti.